My wife forged my signature on a $200, $0 home deed to her own sister, then convinced me to sign a false settlement release during our bitter divorce. Now she's claiming all the property and savings, and I just found out she's been secretly moving money offshore. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Lisa, turned out to be one of the biggest liars and cheats I've ever known. Honestly, I thought we had a good marriage, solid, stable, full of plans for the future. But that all changed in a split second when I stumbled across her phone one night and found messages that made my stomach drop. I saw texts from a guy named Jake, talking about meeting up, sneaking around, and how she couldn't wait to see him again. It was a gut punch, but what really shattered me was the way she lied about everything afterward. She told me it was nothing, just some harmless flirtation, and I was overreacting. Yeah, right, it started subtly. I noticed Lisa was acting a little different, less interested in me, secretive about her phone, staying out late with work friends. She'd get defensive when I asked questions, calling me paranoid or insecure, but I ignored the signs at first. I told myself maybe she was just stressed, maybe she needed a break. Then I caught her phone lying on the nightstand, unlocked with those messages from Jake still open. I saw enough. I saw everything I needed to know. That's when I realized my wife, the woman I'd trusted with everything, was cheating. The worst part wasn't just the affair, though. It was the way she lied to my face, kept up this fake persona, pretending she loved me and our life. She'd call me controlling when I'd ask her where she was, but she was the one sneaking around. She'd tell me she was working late, but I'd find her car parked outside Jake's house. And she'd lie. Oh, she'd lie with that bitchy smirk, insisting I was imagining things, that I was paranoid, that she was just talking to a friend. But I knew better. I knew what I saw. I felt betrayed in every possible way. Then came the real blow. I started digging deeper. I was pissed off and hurt, but also curious. What else was she hiding? Turns out, the affair was just the tip of the iceberg. I found bank statements, emails, and legal documents that made my blood run cold. She'd been secretly moving money offshore, hiding assets, and forging my signature on a deed to put my house in her sister's name. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. She manipulated me into signing a false settlement during our nasty divorce, convincing me it was for the best, all while she was planning her escape, her new life with Jake, and her dirty money. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. All the trust I'd ever had in her evaporated in an instant. I thought I knew her, but I was dead wrong. She's always been a bitchy, manipulative person, quick with a lie, quick to turn things around on me when I called her out. She's the kind of woman who can be charming one second and cold as ice the next. And now, I see she's been cheating, stealing, and scheming behind my back. It's like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I thought I was just dealing with a typical cheating wife, but it's so much worse. She's been lying for years, and I only just found out the full extent of her betrayal. After I uncovered all that mess, her affair, the offshore accounts, the forged signatures, I felt like I was suffocating. My mind was racing, trying to process how someone I loved and trusted could turn into this manipulative, money-hungry liar. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smirking, lying, sneaking around with Jake. The betrayal cut deep, and I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I needed a plan. The first thing I did was gather all the evidence I could find. I printed out the emails, bank statements, the fake deed, everything. I wanted to be ready for whatever she threw at me. I knew Lisa. She's always been good at twisting the truth, spinning lies to make herself look like the victim, so I had to be smart. I stayed quiet for a few days, watching her every move, waiting for the right moment to talk, but I also started reaching out to a lawyer I found through some research. I needed to understand my rights and what I was up against. One night I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I confronted her in the living room, the evidence laid out on the coffee table. Lisa, I know about Jake. I know you've been cheating, lying, and stealing from me. I saw the bank statements, the emails. What the hell is going on? I kept my voice steady, but inside I was boiling. I wanted her to admit everything right then and there. Her reaction was classic Lisa, defensive, angry, dismissive. She rolled her eyes, scoffed, and told me I was crazy, that I was just jealous and paranoid. She claimed Jake was just a friend, that I was overreacting because I was insecure. She even had the nerve to say I was the one cheating, that I was projecting my guilt onto her. That was the moment I realized how good she was at lying. She's a master manipulator and I was just a pawn in her game. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I showed her the evidence and her face turned pale for a second. That was the first crack in her facade. She tried to deny the offshore accounts, claiming it was all for business. But I knew better. I had seen the wire transfers, the shell companies. She was hiding millions and I was just discovering how deep her lies went. My mind was spinning. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this, cheat, steal, and lie all at once? The emotional toll hit me hard. I felt betrayed, angry, and heartbroken all at once. I loved her once, believed in us, but now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who only cared about herself. I was furious that she'd convinced me to sign that false settlement release, letting her walk away with everything, our house, our savings, my future. She's been playing me from the start, and I realized I was just a pawn in her scheme. The pain was overwhelming, but I knew I had to act. I couldn't let her get away with this, not after everything she'd done. In the days that followed, I threw myself into trying to understand just how deep her deception went. I spent hours on the phone with my lawyer, going over every document, every shady transaction I'd uncovered. It was clear she'd been planning her escape. For a while, moving money offshore, forging my signature on the deed to my house, convincing me to sign some bogus settlement that she later used to strip me of everything. I kept thinking about how she looked me in the eyes, lying so convincingly, pretending to be the loving wife I thought I knew. That realization made me sick. How could she be so manipulative, so cold? I decided I needed to hit back, to reclaim what was mine and make her pay for the damage she'd done. My plan started forming in my mind, revenge but also justice. I wasn't going to let her walk away with my house, my savings, and my dignity. I knew I had to be strategic. I started by gathering even more evidence, screenshots of her secret conversations with Jake, copies of the offshore bank statements, the deed forged under her sister's name. It was a mountain of proof, and I knew I'd need every bit of it to fight her in court. Then I made a crucial move. I contacted a forensic accountant to trace the offshore transfers. What I found was staggering. Millions of dollars had been moved out of the country, probably into accounts she'd hidden in offshore havens. She'd been planning her escape for months, maybe even years. Every new piece of evidence made me angrier but also more determined. I wasn't just going to let her take everything. I was going to fight back and I was going to win. I decided I'd use the law to expose her, to undo the damage she'd done, and to get my life back on track. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act, bitchy, dismissive, pretending to be the innocent victim. She'd call me paranoid, accuse me of trying to ruin her, say I was just jealous of her relationship with Jake. She insisted she loved me, that all the money she'd stolen was for our future, that she never meant to hurt me, but I saw through her lies. She's always been good at lying, twisting everything to her advantage. And now I knew the truth. She was a master manipulator and I'd been blinded for too long. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt betrayed, angry, and lost. Every time I thought about her lying to my face, I wanted to scream. Every time I saw her smirk, I wanted to shake her and demand the truth. I'd loved her once, but now I saw her for what she really was, a selfish, manipulative woman who only cared about herself. The pain of her betrayal cut deep, but I knew I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her get away with this, not after everything. I was ready to fight, ready to bring her lies into the light and take back what's mine. The more I dug into her financials, the more I realized just how far she'd gone to cover her tracks. I found accounts in obscure offshore banks, shell companies registered under fake names, and wire transfers that led to places I'd never heard of. It was like she'd built a fortress around her money, impenetrable, secret, and designed to hide her assets from me. I couldn't believe I'd been married to someone who was capable of this level of deception. It made my stomach turn just thinking about how she'd used my trust against me, forging signatures, convincing me to sign papers that basically handed over everything I'd worked for, all while she was secretly planning her escape route. I sat there, staring at the screen late into the night, trying to piece together her entire scheme. She lied about her whereabouts, about her intentions, and every step of the way she'd been planning her new life with Jake. I had to admit, part of me felt numb, like I was watching someone else's life, someone I never knew. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by this cold, calculating manipulator who turned marriage into one giant con. I felt betrayed, furious, and helpless all at once, but I refused to be defeated. I knew I had enough evidence now, enough to fight back in court and to expose her lies. I also knew I had to act fast. If she was moving money offshore, she might try to drain what's left of our joint savings or transfer more assets. That's when I contacted a private investigator I'd found through a friend. I needed eyes on her, someone who could follow her around, find out exactly what she was doing, and give me real-time updates. I couldn't trust her anymore. She'd lied so many times, I didn't know what was real and what was a cover-up. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude was getting worse. She was bitchy, dismissive, and snarky every time I brought up the subject of money or her whereabouts. She'd call me paranoid, accuse me of trying to control her, and even lie about her meetings with Jake, claiming they were just business dinners or friendly hangouts. I saw through her bullshit, but it still hurt. She's always been good at spinning stories, twisting facts to make herself look innocent. That's her game. Lying, cheating, manipulating, and then blaming everyone else when it all comes crashing down. The emotional toll was brutal. Every day I felt more betrayed, more broken inside. I loved her, or at least I thought I did, but now I wondered if I ever really knew her at all. The woman I believed in was gone, replaced by someone who'd lied, cheated, and stolen from me. It's a sick feeling, knowing the person you trusted with your life was capable of this level of deception. All I could do was focus on gathering evidence, planning my next move, and trying to stay sane through the chaos. I knew that if I didn't act now, she'd slip away with the rest of my life savings, and I'd be left with nothing but shattered memories. The days turned into a whirlwind of legal consultations, financial audits, and constant surveillance. The private investigator I hired confirmed what I suspected. Lisa was actively transferring money, closing accounts, and even trying to buy another property offshore. She was clearly trying to run away with everything, leaving me with nothing. I felt a mix of rage and helplessness. How could she do this? How could someone I loved turn into someone so cold, so manipulative? Every time I thought about her lying to my face, I wanted to scream. Every time I saw her smirk or heard her dismiss my concerns, I felt the betrayal deep in my bones. I sat down with my lawyer and laid out everything I'd uncovered. We drafted a plan to freeze her assets, subpoena her offshore accounts, and challenge the forged deed. The evidence was solid. She forged my signature, transferred the house to her sister, and was trying to hide all her money. I knew I had a strong case, but I also knew Lisa's manipulative nature. She'd fight dirty, twist facts, and do everything she could to keep what she wanted. That's why I needed to be meticulous, to cover all my bases. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude grew even more bitchy and confrontational. She'd lash out at me, call me paranoid or jealous, and accuse me of trying to ruin her life. She insisted she was the victim, that I'd driven her to cheat and steal because I was controlling or abusive. She was trying to spin the narrative so that she'd come out looking innocent. I could see through her lies, but it still hurt to be called the bad guy when I was just trying to protect myself and what was rightfully mine. One night, she snapped at me during one of our fights. She said I was just jealous of Jake, that I was a terrible husband, and that I'd never really loved her. That hit me hard, her words, her accusations, and her complete lack of remorse. I realized she'd already moved past us, that she was ready to burn everything down just to get what she wanted. I felt a deep sadness, but also a fierce determination. I wasn't going to let her destroy me or steal my future. I knew I had to stay strong, keep fighting, and expose her lies in court. In the end, I learned a lot about trust and deception. I learned that the person you think you know can turn out to be someone entirely different when money and greed are involved. I also learned that revenge isn't just about hurting her back. It's about reclaiming your dignity, your truth, and your life. I'm still in the thick of it, still fighting to get what's mine, but I won't let her win. Not after everything she's done. I hope someday I can look back on this and say I came out stronger. But right now, it's just one hell of a mess I never expected to be in. The court date finally arrived, and I went into that courtroom with every shred of evidence I could gather, everything from forged signatures to offshore bank statements. Lisa was there, looking smug, trying to act like she was the innocent victim, but I knew better. As the judge reviewed the case, I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about justice, about showing her that lying and cheating have consequences. When the judge finally made his ruling, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The court confirmed that Lisa had forged my signature, transferred our property illegally, and was actively hiding assets offshore. The deed was declared null and void, and I was awarded full ownership of the house. The court also ordered her to return the stolen funds, and it was clear her offshore accounts would be scrutinized further. I saw her face fall. She knew she lost. That smugness, that bitchy smirk, gone. In the aftermath, I started rebuilding my life. I sold the house she tried to cheat me out of, moved into a modest apartment, and began the slow process of healing. I cut all contact with her, realizing I couldn't trust her anymore. The pain of betrayal still lingered, but I was determined to move forward, to reclaim what I'd lost and learn from this nightmare. I realized that I'd been blinded by love, but now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, dishonest woman who'd used me and discarded me like trash. Looking back, I've learned a lot about trust, betrayal, and the importance of staying vigilant. No matter how much you love someone, you have to protect yourself, especially when money and greed are involved. I also learned that revenge, when done right, is about hurting someone just to hurt them. It's about justice and reclaiming your dignity. I've come out of this stronger, more cautious, and more aware of the red flags I'd ignored before. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, trust your instincts, gather your evidence, and don't let anyone manipulate or steal from you. It's a hard lesson, but one that's worth learning. Life's unpredictable, and sometimes the people you love the most can turn out to be your biggest enemies. But at the end of the day, you have to stand tall, fight for what's right, and remember, you're stronger than you think.